Just after high school I worked in a local grocery store. One of the managers was a pain to work for. Like even the groceries had to be bagged a certain way or we would get in trouble. A wall full of info and notification and she would say, "Hey, did you see the flyer on the wall by the time clock? Know which one? I cannot believe all of you are such bad employees and haven't read XYZ. Oh yeah, I wasn't sure which flyer you were talking about since there are a lot there." One night she asked me to go straighten up the rocks around the trees in the parking lot. I asked if I could use a shovel or something and she said no. It wasn't that hard. I could use my hands. Assuming it would take 20 minutes. Okay. I went and picked up every single rock I could find in the parking lot and customers kept asking why I wasn't using a shovel. I said I'm not allowed. I have to do it by hand. 2 hours later she came out looking for me. She said, "Why are you out here so long? Picking up the rocks by hand like you asked?" She had the nerve to look at me and say, "Why didn't you use a shovel?" I was just doing what you told me to do. I don't remember her bothering me as much after that. Also at the new store they put mulch down and have someone go out and sweep it up. I just saw an employee doing that and reminded me of this story. Update: I wasn't purposely being malicious at the time. They were more like pebbles and small stones that they used around trees next to where cars parked. So people were always walking over them to go in and out of their cars. This was in the middle of a Midwest muggy 90 degrees evening in my full uniform, long sleeve button-up and slacks. Professor Tiny Potato is a she lol. I know CD-ROM cup holders have jumped the shark. But that's okay, this is a CD-ROM story, but it's not a cup holder story. One fine day a few jobs back, I'd finished one customer PC so it was time to get the next one off the queue. The attached paperwork had some vague comment about a CD fault. I plugged the box in, fired it up, shoved a test CD in it and started trying it out. And found no fault. Okay, I'll try another. Slapped the eject button and the tray opened. With the CD spinning very fast. Fast enough in fact that, presumably with a bit of help from being slightly warped, or maybe not, I'm not a physicist, it rose about a centimeter off the tray and hovered there for 2 or 3 seconds. Well, I'd sure reproduce the fault now. But it boggles the mind that the customer, or perhaps the service counter, hadn't found the fault remarkable enough to say explicitly what it was. So this is another story from last year. I was a Christmas temporary for a big company where I live. This company likes to make monthly donation to charities and events, Aussie wildfires, children education etc. I believe this one was for helping kids somewhere, I can't really remember, sorry. It's important to know that the checkout aisles are designed to let 2 cashiers perform transactions at once, with the cashier's backs facing the other cashier's line, if that makes sense, so a customer can go down the wrong lane and be behind me. This lady comes though my checkout, she is around 80, looks like a lady you would see in those cardio groups. Now today we are slightly busy so there is always someone to serve. The transaction goes well, until I ask if she would like to leave a donation. She looks at me and asks me to repeat myself. "Would you like to leave a donya?" "No," she shrieks. She tells me that she never leaves a donation, and I give her the items that she purchased thinking that was the end of it. Big nope. She comes around the back of my counter and starts to tell me in an angry tone about how her son went to country island or country that I had never heard of and how over there they stole the donations for themselves. All the while I am nodding politely and serving other customers, without asking them about the donation, who are also looking extremely uncomfortable because of her standing behind me. Tip for everyone: cashiers will accept you saying no thanks without having to give a life story or explanation. So this old lady called and tried to place an order but couldn't complete it because they couldn't understand her card number, so she got mad and hung up to try to call back. So a little bit later she calls back and another person takes the call this time and has to completely restart the order and eventually completed it and told us that she ordered the pizza as a surprise for someone's birthday and wanted happy birthday from Nana written on the receipt, so he did that. She also gave him a very strong no when asked if she wanted to leave a tip for the driver. Eventually it comes out of the oven and I realize it's my delivery, but it's a double, and luckily I took the other first because this lady had given an address that does not exist. So I'm waiting in my car at the end of the street it was supposed to be on and tried to call her and thought I got a hold of her, but it was just her voicemail, which for some reason started with "Hi. This is" her name, and I left a voicemail and called the store to tell them the address is wrong and she isn't answering, so they said they'd try to get a hold of her. While I'm waiting, this guy comes down his long-ass driveway and by some miracle he was the person the pizza was for, and I had randomly parked right in front of his driveway. So I apologized for the wait and told him she gave the wrong address, and he said she's not right in the head, and I told him she didn't tip either, and he gave me 3 and apologized, and I told him he didn't have to give me that and that it wasn't his fault, but he still gave it to me, which was nice. I told him about the happy birthday receipt, and with a very exasperated look on his face he told me the happy birthday is for a dead dog. The dog was born on Cinco de Mayo and it's been dead for like 8 years. So I was like, oh alright, and when I gave him the food he said, Jesus, she ordered that much? Because she had ordered a large pizza, a small pizza and cheese bread, and then he said we just finished eating dinner. And I apologized for the situation and he apologized to me for it as well and kept saying she wasn't right in the head throughout the whole conversation. So I told all of my coworkers about this and everyone thought it was hilarious that it was for a dog that had been dead for like 8 years and that the dude was so flustered and had already eaten. So this happens a lot, but I love this particular customer because of his determination. C. Hi, are you the pharmacist? Me, yes. How can I help you? C. This tablet, is it for HBP? Me, yes. C. Can you tell me how I should take it? Me, do you have a copy of your prescription from your doctor? C. No. My neighbor gave me it. We're the same age and he said I should take it too because I might have HBP. I just politely explain why he should not be using his neighbor's meds and he should be examined by his physician, etc. etc. The kicker is he doesn't argue, he says okay and proceeds to ask every employee in the dispensary area how to take it, then every employee on his way out. Everyone's responses are the same. My 14-year-old daughter and I are the only ones in the house that drink coffee. During this pandemic I have been going to work. Our deal has always been, I make the coffee and she cleans the French press after she's had her coffee for the day. Now I leave early in the morning for work and she sleeps in probably to around 9 a.m. Well, even though she's home all day, she keeps forgetting to clean the FB. I tell her before I got to bed every day, not to forget to clean it. I won't, Mom. She has not cleaned it in a while and I've had enough, so I decided to take all the coffee to work today and leave the grounds for her. Take that, kid. I grew up a military brat and we did all our shopping at the commissary on base. I knew it like the back of my hand. Sometimes they would change things to make it seem fancier than it was. This time they had hidden the bakery behind the bread shelves to make it like a secret bakery garden. I was getting groceries for my family and I guess looked like I knew what I was doing because I heard a very frustrated voice say, "Do you even have muffins in this store?" I turned around and saw this elderly gentleman with a very grumpy look on his face. I said, "I'm sorry?" He answered, "Muffins. I've been looking everywhere and you don't have any." I smiled, because he sounded cute grumbling about muffins, and said, "Oh, I actually don't work here, but I do know where the bakery is. Do you see that wall of bread?" I pointed to the end of the aisle. "If you go all the way to the left of it, there's an opening, and the bakery is right back there." As I was talking, the old man's face morphed from confused, embarrassed, confused again, and finally lit up as he said, "All right. Good deal. You should get a job here." And he marched off to probably give a poor bakery worker a piece of his mind, but it made my day to see him so happy. Me checking in a guest today. Please read and sign this form indicating that you are an essential traveler and using the room for essential travel. Guest, signs form within 5 seconds of me finishing. Me, and a friendly reminder that there are no visitors allowed. Guest, yup, got it. /1 hour later /woman randomly walking around the hotel. Me, ma'am, are you looking for 219? Not allowed visitor, yes. Me, no visitors allowed, you will have to leave. /call guest to once again let him know there are no visitors allowed and guest comes to the front desk /. Guest, can I get a refund on my room? Me, you mean the room that you affirmed was for essential travel and that you wouldn't have visitors in? Guest, yeah, so you can just put it back on my card, right? Me, no. I work in IT, tech support for truck drivers and the associates of the company. They are not very tech savvy, just putting that out there now. I got a call from an associate. He was in office, traveled from home because he couldn't log into Windows. If he couldn't log into just his VPN, he wouldn't have had to go back to the office. Password reset, no problem. Well, I get his password reset for him on my end, assist him in making a new one and syncing it to the system. He starts talking about wanting to try the VPN to make sure he'll work from home. The convo ensues something like this. Associate, okay, I took out the blue cord and I'm trying to connect to the Wi-Fi. Me, Why are you trying to connect to the Wi-Fi, sir? Associate, to make sure the VPN will work. Me, sir, you're at a company site. The VPN is part of the company network, and if you're connected to it through the Wi-Fi or the Ethernet cord, you're not going to be able to connect to the VPN. He said something after that and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something about how he knew it would need to work in Office first. Me, sir, you already have access, you can't have access a second time, if that makes sense. Associate, okay, I'm connected to the Wi-Fi. Now let me try to connect to the VPN. At that point I put myself on mute and started cussing the guy out because the guy wasn't listening to me. He tries to connect to the VPN and gets the message you already have access. And he read that aloud, so I was hoping he'd get the idea that the VPN wasn't going to connect in Office. Associate, aw man. It's probably not going to work from home if I'm getting that message. I'm glad I was still on mute because I facepalmed and it was loud. Me, sir, I promise you it will work from home. I will give you the ticket number for the call, and if you have more issues, call us back. We are 24/7. I gave him the ticket number and sent him on his way. As far as I know, he didn't call back. On mobile, sorry. 23F, think it was about December. I had a blocked nose, so I used a nasal spray as per usual. But it didn't go away, so I just kept buying nasal sprays, and it got to the point where I couldn't sleep and would wake up not being able to breathe unless I used the spray, and it just became habit. Fast forward to today, where I had been using nasal sprays for about 5 months for a blocked nose and finally decided to go to the doctor. Doctor said I had inflamed my nasal and throat glands, and if I kept using the sprays for another couple of weeks, would have torn a hole in my septum. I now can barely breathe out my nose, but am not allowed to use the sprays to help and have to take steroids and antihistamines for the next week or so to combat the damage I did. I cannot believe I was so stupid. TL, Dr. Tifu, by using nasal sprays for 5 months, causing me to almost tear a hole in my septum. In recognition of Maura Murray's 38th B-Day this week, I spoke briefly with you/gorilla_ontologist from #107degrees podcast and shared my thoughts on Julie's interview with r/True Crime Garage, some of my favorite memories of Maura, and how I found out she disappeared. Listen here. For those who may not know, I was Maura's boyfriend when she disappeared, and I'd like to thank those interested in Maura's case, the folks who raise awareness of who Maura really was, and the volunteers who help the Murray family each and every day to find her and bring her home. Maura's family launched a new website this week, a tribute to Maura and a resource for those who are interested in the case. Please visit the website at www.mauramurraymissing.org and let's #find Maura. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical TJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee, cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about DJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ, and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. I don't care what your political alignment on overdraft fees are, trying to sue a bank for charging you too many, when all the transactions were authorized by you, is not going to work. What do people think they're going to get out of threatening to sue us, for anything really? I don't get paid enough to care, honestly, and being nice to me will make me more likely to make exceptions for you. I've literally run my manager down for overrides for people who are super apologetic and patient, but I also have ways to make your life harder if you're rude. Most of the time my manager will refund overdraft fees for people even when it's their fault, if they come to her nicely and explain the situation. I don't know if people realize how many exceptions we can make for them, but they probably don't, since quarantine has definitely brought the awful members, and non-members, out of the woodworks who think the world revolves around them, And they're immune to contracts that they signed because y'all didn't tell me about this. Someone needed to change their password while working remotely. They are pressing Ctrl-Alt-Del like normal, but that is trying to change the password on their home computer. Me, okay, instead of Ctrl-Alt-Del, when in remote desktop press Ctrl-Alt-End. User, it's still not working. Me, let me remote into your computer to take a look. Here's the address you need to go to. No, don't search for it, put it in the address bar. No, you don't need to Google it. You need to put it in the address bar at the top of the screen. /tilde 20 minutes later I managed to walk them through going to a website, putting in a session number, and starting the session. After each time I told them to do something there was a plethora of mumbling half-sentences without any indication if they were able to do it or what the problem was before actually responding to me. Me, I'm connected now. I press Ctrl-Alt-End. Click Change Password. They put in their old and new passwords. It works. It was a challenge to remain calm during that. I am not really mad at them though. Part of the issue was that English isn't their first language, and they were being very patient with me as well. Doesn't make it any less frustrating to deal with, but it's the difference between being frustrated with them and frustrated at the situation. But still, it's 2020. How do you not know how to go to a website? First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me, okay, tell me exactly what happened. CLR, yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head. Me, okay, are you with her now? CLR, well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here. Me, have you gone to check on her yet? CLR, no, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her. Me, can you please go check on the patient? CLR, yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them. Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the EMTs got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. I've been working in a general food store for nearly 2 years, I've never missed a single day, always showed up on time, always did my job and did it well. I've never had any major issues or complaints before. Late March I was fired. I was told that a customer had called and complained that I spat in their food, was on my phone, and not wearing gloves. They didn't give me any chance to give my side and immediately fired me. They didn't present any proof, CCTV, the customer's call, or anything like that. They just said the decision has already been made. I always wore gloves, due to pandemic protocols. I never carry my phone on me, it doesn't even have service or Wi-Fi so I couldn't waste time on it even if I wanted to. I keep it in my car now. I found out my managers went through my phone without telling me, and I'm honestly so shocked they said I spat in their food I thought it was a prank. I don't recall any of this happening whatsoever, and I've never had an issue with customers before. What can I do? I've applied for A and CERB, Canadian, and I'm having trouble finding work amid the pandemic. I'm really stressed and scared. I am a walking I don't work here lady, and I've accepted my fate. Recently, I took a job as a magazine merchandiser, which is a fancy way of saying I take old magazines off of shelves and racks in grocery stores and replace them with new ones. Even before I took this job, I tended to dress pretty professionally in my day-to-day life. My normal is a pair of black slacks and a dress shirt, and a decent enough pair of black Oxfords. Needless to say, this gets me mistaken for an employee and most often a manager on a regular basis. My all-time record was probably last week. At one larger department store, I was mistaken for an employee because the color of my shirt was the same color that all the employees wear. Oops. At the next grocery store, I was mistaken for a manager and asked about gift cards, which, as a side note, seems to be the most common question that customers have. I figured 2 in 1 day was pretty good, but after I clocked out I stopped at a third/grocery store to pick up my weekly allotment of food necessities. A gentleman at the meat counter presumed I was a manager and asked me about some special. I told him I didn't work there and he said, in a joking way, "Well, maybe you should dress down a bit when you go out shopping." And we both laughed. I could probably change my ways and avoid the confusion, but I'm too stubborn to do so. Maybe I should just start memorizing each store's policy on gift cards so I can actually start helping some people. To give some context, I am currently in the UK and I am 17 years old. My parents were married for 18 years and my mum tolerated the physical, emotional and sexual abuse because she thought having a complete family is important. Finally they are divorced, but now there is a financial settlement happening. My dad has made it his mission to ruin my mum's life. He can afford a lawyer, and spend freely and is living happily. One time he broke into the home to steal my mother's jewelry. We are basically broke and my mum is emotionally exhausted. Every time I think of my dad I imagine all the ways I want to make him pay. My mum is scared that he will win the case, since she doesn't have money to afford a lawyer and so is representing herself, and as a result we will become basically homeless. What annoys me though is that my father makes himself the victim, and I just have the urge to expose all the things he has done without it impacting the financial hearing or getting my family in trouble. That is the best way to take revenge on my biological father? I've been watching the Atlanta child murders on HBO during quarantine and finished the last episode tonight. After listening to the podcast, The Atlanta Monster, and watching the series, I am now convinced that there were at least 3 active serial killers/pedophiles involved in many of the killings of children. I am highly skeptical that Wayne Williams killed of the children, but at this point believe he might have killed the 2 adults. I would like for the reinvestigation to re-examine, convict, and close some of the murders of children that deserve justice after over 40 years. Did anyone else watch the series? If so, what were your thoughts? A man called in upset at us for harassing him to pay his phone bill. He'd been a customer since the late 1930s and he'd never been late on his bill. In fact, he paid once a year for an entire year's service. I asked him what we were saying when we called him for payment, and he said he didn't know, he wasn't answering the calls. I noticed he'd recently added caller ID to his line and asked what numbers were calling him. He read off some random numbers. I looked them all up. The calls were coming from payphones. The caller ID display had the number and payphone. It took a whole lot of control to keep from giggling as I returned to the call to explain. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. This happened at about 3 a.m. today. I'm in the middle of remodeling our bathroom and have tools and materials littered over half of our adjacent bedroom. Time is really only available for the project on the weekends, but I've avoided hauling stuff back and forth to the garage. This includes an air compressor, which I've been using to power a nail gun. Well, I must have left the air compressor on, because in the middle of the night it flipped on to pressurize its tank, which must have just dropped below its trigger pressure. The 100 decibels compressor running 2 feet from our bed yanked my wife out of a deep sleep and dropped her squarely into fight or flight territory. To make matters worse, I'm a very heavy sleeper and didn't even wake up. My wife was kind enough to start swearing at the top of her lungs after the compressor went off to let me know there was a matter requiring my attention. We'll all laugh at it one day. Today's not that day. TL, Doctor, I accidentally woke my wife up from a dead sleep with an air compressor. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. I work for a defense contractor in a small town, let's call it Company A, which has subcontracted me out to a larger defense contractor, let's call it Company B. With the current situation that's going on, a few weeks ago, Company B decided to mandate that all employees wear a mask at all times, no excuses. I really wasn't crazy about the idea of having to wear a mask for 9 hours a day, but hey, I understand why they are doing it, so I've been a good little engineer and have worn the mask all day every day since. Now breathing through these masks for hours on end can cause a bit of cotton mouth, so I take a break to head down to the vending machine and pick up a Diet Mountain Dew. I sit back down at my desk and pull down my mask to begin enjoying my delicious low-calorie delight while staring at some code. So after a few minutes have passed, I notice a manager from Company B walking by my desk looking at me with a look of disapproval. Now this guy always has a look like he had a hard time pinching one off in the bathroom, so I didn't really think much of it at the time. Moments later, I get an email from him saying I need to have my mask on at all times and that I am in violation of company policy. Again, I figure he's just the typical bean counter trying to flex a little, so I figured I'd let him have his moment and just deleted the email. What ensued was a total shitstorm. I start getting emails from managers from Company A and Company B explaining to me that I would be walked out of the office if I continue to break policy. Phone calls start rolling into people in the office who don't even know me asking what's going on and why I'm not complying. Being overwhelmed, I decided to do the one thing I know would solve the problem. I went to lunch. Now, I'm thinking the whole thing is gonna blow over while I'm gone and I really won't have to deal with much when I get back. Wrong again. What I return to are emails from Company A that state Company B is threatening to pull contract funding due to employee insubordination and they want an explanation of why I'm refusing to wear a mask. All I could simply reply with was I was trying to enjoy my Diet Mountain Dew. I'm sure tomorrow will be an exciting day. TL, Doctor, I took my mask off at work to drink a Diet Mountain Dew while a manager was walking by. Now my company is being threatened to be removed from the contract. Not a very long story, but it did happen today, about 30 minutes ago. My ex needed some apples in Animal Crossing, kinda relevant later, so I sent a friend request and hopped over to her island. Gave her the apples and explored around a bit. The island was very new, still farther than mine, so she said it still needs work/built. I leave the island and go back to work. I remember I have a silly meme about Rome not being built in a day but with AC characters time skipping, so I decide to send it. I figured it'd be funny. Now here's the tifu, my phone isn't amazing, the edge of the screen loves picking up my fat hand touch, especially when I reach my thumb up too far. I'm in a hurry to get back to work, so I tap on the AC meme. Unfortunately my hand tapped onto a slightly different image without me noticing. I click OK and hurriedly tap send and instantly realize I didn't send the AC meme but instead an extremely messed up hentai image. My stomach instantly sank and I quickly sent a message asking her not to open up the image, but I don't think any phone in the last 10 years wouldn't just instantly download an image. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Not to mention she's also currently at work. I feel pretty awful about the whole thing. DL, doctor tried to send my ex a funny Animal Crossing meme and ended up sending my most flipped up hentai image. Edit, picture for clarity. How does one flip up killing a spider? By being an idiot. Tonight, a bit after midnight, I saw a spider in my room. He watched and stalked me from the ceiling across the room. After 5 minutes of stalling, planning, I grabbed my AP Calc book and beat the big old spider. The spider was now squished on my wall. I decided to use the book to pry it off. This was my mistake. I did this while standing under it. Then this big old hairy spider fell towards me. I panicked and dropped the book. By some miracle the spider did not land on me, but I couldn't find the body. All that was left was one hairy leg. So, at midnight I was vacuuming my room and cleaning it in a panic. Then, while vacuuming my window, I see another smaller spider vibing on my window next to me. I then killed and disposed of it and left the room. I showered and am not going to sleep in there. DLDR killed a spider and then caused it to fall towards me. Panicked and lost the body. Found a second spider looking for the first in my room. Girlfriend will bring me Raider matches to clean up mess. I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself, then which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of you 11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. Small town tech support story again. Over the course of my business I had a lot of people with issues with HP printers. They just wouldn't install. Oh, if you download the software from HP it works, but Windows was robust enough to just install what you needed for everything except HP printers. But the problem is that users are users, and don't know the nuances of going to the manufacturer's websites to download the latest software. So, it got to the point where I told any user who called about them to not get one from HP. User, I need to get a printer. Which one should I get? Me, I recommend Canon, Brother, Epson, basically anything but an HP. Note that I've had all of these brands over the years with little to no issues getting them set up. User, what about HP? Me, I don't recommend it. I've had other users with issues getting them set up. User, so, a Canon? Me, or Brother or Epson or anything except an HP. User, got it. Thanks. And hashtag X200B. Fast forward 1 week. And hashtag X200B. User, I'm having trouble setting up this new printer I bought. I plug it in but the computer won't recognize it. Me, what kind did you get? User, an HP blah blah. Me, and what did I tell you last week? It's nice owning your own tech support because you can't get in trouble for saying stuff like this to users. User, not to get an HP? Me, right. Okay, I'll be by in about 20 minutes. And hashtag X200B. Edited for formatting because I'm still getting used to this. I made a comment on another post today that really made me think. I commented that reading all of these call center customer screaming negative posts made me want to call into any customer service and just tell the person on the other end that I don't have a problem. However, I'm calling in to thank them for doing their job, to have a nice day, and I wanted them to have a nice call for a change. Then just hang up and leave them happy and wondering. I think that would seriously brighten the days of many people who are working from home during these times and having to deal with all of the mean people in the world who are taking pent-up frustrations out on customer service call center people. Is anyone with me? Strange idea, I know, but I feel it would totally brighten a lot of people's days. And hashtag X200B. Hello, so basically I found out my boyfriend has a side piece. I will be breaking up with him, but he doesn't know this. I've already made the plans I need to safely and smartly leave. Now, he asked what he could do to make me change his mind. His side girl is his best friend, and he said he doesn't want to have to choose between me and her. I know, right? So I told him that he needs to let me speak to her. I want to do this solely to give me the satisfaction of watching her squirm and giving me the power back that I deserve. And #X200B. Basically I would like to sit her down, just me and her, and interview her. I want to flip with her. I want to ask her things that will make her feel like shit about herself. I do not plan on doing any violence to her. I want to ask her things like, tell me about your self-esteem issues. Tell me about your demons. How would you feel if I did the same to you? I know you don't like yourself, and I have a feeling you don't like yourself more than I could ever not like you. I feel sorry for you. I hope this has helped you understand why you will always feel like you are a plan B, something she discussed with me before, and never a priority. You will always feel this way and you will always ask yourself, why? And #X200B. Anyone have any other things I should tell to someone that will leave them second-guessing their self-worth? TLDR, thousands of shop-level employees got laid off based on a computer algorithm the corporate office designed that doesn't factor in seniority and gives preference to certain employees. Store managers and corporate office employees were not affected at all by these layoffs. Please feel free to ask me any questions, I have lots of free time now. And #X200B. I work at it at Take 5 Oil Change, same thing as Jiffy Lube, for 5 years and was terminated yesterday along with 1,000 other lube techs. All the stores only have 1 to 3 people working there now. Nobody at the corporate level got let go, all the store managers are still working, and the rest was left up to a computer algorithm. I took pictures of our company's organizational charts in ADP before they locked me out, showing that corporate employees were not affected at all. The regional manager, who is in charge of over 60 stores, actually said that corporate's computers picked which assistant managers and lube techs would stay and which ones would be terminated with preference given to some assistant managers. I have no say in the matter. Apparently experience wasn't a factor in this algorithm. Lube techs who had worked there for more than 20 years got laid off while some techs who just started last year are still being employed. In the letter they sent out to everyone, they stated that all employees terminated will be considered for rehire subject to work history. They aren't even guaranteeing their jobs back, they're basically telling us we need to fill out an application again and hope for a callback. Does this seem pretty messed up or is it just me? How can a company lay off people so easily without care? It sounds like they are using the current events as an opportunity to clean house and start fresh with new people once things settle down. I can't imagine a company anywhere that lets a computer tell them who can stay and who can leave during a layoff. I think what bothers me the most is that I know very well the expendable shop-level employees are only getting laid off so the company can afford to pay the management and corporate employees. They still have 10 employees on payroll making $70–80K a year for unit growth and development. This company is not doing any growing or expanding right now, couldn't they let some of those people go? Thank you for taking the time to read, I just really wanted to vent my frustrations. If what they are doing isn't illegal, then it is certainly the shadiest thing I have ever come across. Missing, John Lee date, June 20, 2015 Location, Appleton, Wisconsin. What makes a disappearance suspicious? What makes a disappearance not suspicious? Perhaps, if someone had a history of falling off the grid for periods of time, it might not seem suspicious, but what if had never happened before? What if that person has yet to return home years after their disappearance? Is it suspicious then? John Lee has been missing for almost 5 years now, and his disappearance is still not believed to be suspicious by the authorities investigating it. On June 20, 2015, 22-year-old Appleton, Wisconsin resident John Lee was interviewed by police about a complaint regarding criminal trespassing. Later on that evening, John Lee disappeared. His family reported him missing on June 21, 2015, just one day after he disappeared. His vehicle and phone were found at a friend's house, and it was determined that they had been left there by John. Authorities have looked into his disappearance, but no sign of John Lee has ever been discovered. His family also has searched for information regarding his disappearance, however the results of these investigations are unknown with little information being available in John's case. Whether his disappearance is viewed as suspicious or not suspicious by law enforcement, people don't just disappear. John's family and friends deserve answers as to where John went on that June day. John's whereabouts are unknown, but he very well could still be alive, and even if he isn't, his loved ones deserve closure. Sources: This happened a few years ago. Context: I live in England, was 23 at the time. I had come out of a serious long-term relationship at 22, we were engaged, and I was absolutely broken. I didn't even think about dating, or any type of love interest for a year at least. I had worked hard to put myself back together and had seen a counselor and was taking anti-anxiety medication. I decided it was time to try and find love again. Big mistake. I met a man on Tinder. He was 27 and seemed really friendly and we hit it off really quickly. We went on a fair few dates and saw each other for a few months. As the relationship progressed, he started to get more and more possessive. He didn't like the fact I had my own job, my own friends, my own house, or a close relationship with my family. I knew I had to cut things off quickly because it was becoming too much to handle and I could not survive another horrific relationship experience. I was already too fragile. I told him that I still wasn't ready to get serious with someone and needed to spend more time alone to look after myself. He took it well. Relief. Until he reached his own home and the texts and phone calls started. He called me all sorts of horrendous names and then would come back with saying how he's not worthy, how I'm amazing, and he's just devastated that he's lost me. I firmly told him that I had meant what I had said and that things were not going to happen. He accepted this, for a while. I started getting ads on various social media that were fake accounts he had made. He called me on various numbers, withheld numbers, public phone numbers. He turned up on my drive without warning. He turned up at my place of work and harassed a colleague. I threatened him with police action if he did not stop, and I moved back in with my parents as I did not feel safe at home. For months he tried to contact me various ways and it became exhausting trying to block him from my life. Then one day he changed his tactics. My grandfather had recently passed away and we were very close, so I visited his grave weekly to put flowers on it and sit and think. I arrive one morning and there is a letter on the grave. Only myself and my family ever go there, so I was very confused. It was from Jay begging me to take him back, telling me he would do anything and everything to make me his again. It got threatening towards the end and I decided that enough was enough. This had gone too far. I contacted the police and had a restraining order put in place. I am still not confident enough to date again. I guess you could say I'm scarred. Anyway, graveside caller, please let's never meet again and stay away from my family. When I was 17 I used to deliver for a well-known pizza place in the area. Of course Fridays were always insane and this Friday was supposedly going to be the biggest. Halfway through the night I got to deliver to a home for a specialty pie with 5 toppings. The bill came out to $35. Pizza was deep dish when given toppings, so the price was always jacked up, and was hopping for another good tip to bring my night to about $50. As I'm walking up to the door I can hear them trying to shush their dog. Usually whenever this were to happen it was common courtesy for the customer to come outside to avoid any issues with their dog. Well, they open the door and their 100-pound husky comes bolting out, jumps, bites my arm and then attacks the pizza. Luckily I was okay and very disoriented from the whole situation and wasn't sure what to do since the pizza was all over their front steps. They freaked out and continuously apologized. They informed me that they would call the store and order a new pie and pay for both and tip me extra. However, they sent me on my way without ever paying me. My 17-year-old mind was still messed up from getting attacked by their dog. Getting back to the store I find out they never called and we couldn't find their phone number to contact them. Got bit by their dog and ended up not making anything after it all. Ticket. User states they cannot print to their cube printer. User is WFH but HR, so I'm thinking they might go into the office as needed. Me. Hi user, still having printer issues? User, yes. Me. Okay, what seems to be the problem? User, normally I print while I WFH and then when I get into the office it just prints all my stuff, but now I can't see my cube printer. Me. Thinking about her print queue loading up. Okay. Do you have a date you are returning to office or just once this is all over? User, once it's all over. Me, so your plan is to just print to your cube printer until and let them stack up until the return to office order is given? User, yes, why? Me, screams internally, I'll address that in a moment. What's your printer name? User, I don't know. Me, okay, is it this one that is further down the selection list? User, no. Me, okay, here's a list of every printer in the building and their names, uniform name scheme, so if she sees hers she should recognize it. Do you see the one you use? User, IDK. Me. User, it's in my cube, can you go look? Me, I am aware of that. I am not in the office, do you know the name of it? User, no. A customer was calling about trying to find some hard-to-find parts. I transferred him to the right helpline. 30 seconds later he called back, claiming that the line had disconnected. After this happened 4 times, he asked why the calls weren't going through. This time, I stay on the line to make sure the transfer is completed. It isn't. I leave the call. He calls back again, still claiming he got disconnected. We try it again, but before I transfer him, I give him our customer service number and the right extension in case it fails again so he can call them directly. He replies with, "No, I don't want customer service. I want parts." Sir, parts is a part of customer service. It's the right place for what you need. He started laughing, saying no one answered. I asked him to explain what he meant by that. He said that when I transferred him, hold music came on, and he wasn't willing to wait for forever, so he hung up and tried again and again. Disconnected my ass. With a sigh I explained that his call would be answered in the order it was received, and that there is no guarantee that he would be the first call answered. He would need to wait his turn like everyone else, and that calling repeatedly just moved him to the back of the line. He told me that we had a stupid system and that I should tell our president that customers are suffering because of it. I told him I'd pass along the massage before I put him through. Our stupid system is standard procedure across most large volume phone lines, asshole.